Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews. Coming to you guys my review for The Righteous Gemstones Season 2. Alright, so it is finally here, the second season of The Righteous Gemstones. Man, it has been a while, right? It's been, I think, 2.5 years, or maybe even getting close to 3 years, right? Going into the summer here. So really great to have this show back. And season 1, I would say, was probably my favorite comedy in 2019. Then and kind of Barry, I guess we're kind of close, but one of my favorite comedies, and of course Eastbound and Down and Vice Principals are both easily in my top TV shows of all time. Really huge fans of both of them. Probably Eastbound and Down I think is a little bit better, just subjectively for me, but I just love these Danny McBride HBO shows. I think he's done a fantastic job with all three of them, and this season it was just really great to see it out. I didn't even really I didn't even know a lot about it actually going into it. I heard, of course, some of the casting for it, but I was just so excited to watch this. I didn't really care about any of the, stuff going on with it. I don't even think I watched the trailer, but I just really wanted to see this finally, to actually see it, and I was not disappointed with this one. Really great season here, and really looking forward to talking about it. So, yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this season. If you have seen it, if you haven't seen it, what are you looking forward to, and what were your thoughts on season 1? Of course, this first part here is going to be non-spoiler, so if you haven't seen it, that's perfectly fine to stay in for a little, and I'll give a spoiler warning when we get to that point, of course. But yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, and if you have seen the season, of course, go into spoilers or whatever you want to go into. Love to discuss this season with you guys and hear your thoughts on it. And also, if you enjoy this review, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel as well. Would really appreciate that one. But yeah, like I said, this first one will just be a little bit of a non-spoiler talk here at the beginning, and then I will give a spoiler warning when we get there, when we go into that. So, all right, let's get into this one then. So, Danny McBride, Jody Hill, and David Gordon Green are back with the second season, finally, right, of The Righteous Gemstones after about 2.5 years since the first one. So, the main cast of Danny McBride, John Goodman, Evie Patterson, Adam Devine, Tim Baltz, Cassidy Freeman, and Walton Goggins return with the addition of Eric Roberts, Eric Andre, and Jason Schwartzman in recurring roles. So that is something that I did kind of pay attention to, and I did see a little bit. Love Eric Roberts. He had a really good stint in Justified, just a few episodes in that, but really great. And of course, he's been in tons of shows. He had a good stint in Suits as well that I've seen. And I know those are just more of like the current stuff that he's done. I know he has a whole career of some really great work, but I haven't seen some of the older stuff, of course. But yeah, some of the more recent stuff, really great from him, at least in the TV aspect of things, and really like him. And then, of course, Eric Andre, really funny guy. I haven't seen a lot of his stuff, but I do really, respect him as a comedian, and I think he's really great. And then, of course, Jason Schwartzman, Rushmore, his role in that, of course, probably his biggest one. And I just recently rewatched that movie again a couple months ago, and wow, I love him in Rushmore, of course, and see him in a few other things, Darjeeling Limited. That one I've seen him in too, and he's great. So really great names here to attach to an already stellar cast for this season. So this season sees the expansion of this kind of mega church world in the South, with the introduction of other pastor families, namely the Listens this season, which is obviously Lyle Listen, the husband, I guess, of that couple is, of course, played by Eric Andre. And it also goes deeper into Eli's mysterious past that also begins to kind of pose a serious threat to him in the present as well, and so that past is kind of coming back to kind of affect his life now and his family too. It's not just him; it's also just the wider Gemstone family as well. And they really kind of play on that from the very beginning of this premiere in season 2, and that really kind of follows along the whole rest of the season here. So that's what we're kind of dealing with for this second season, of course. And now to kind of my overall thoughts, of course, without spoilers, so I won't go into too much detail here. But I do think overall that season 1 is a little bit better than season 2. Though I will say I hadn't rewatched season 1, so I am going off of kind of just what I remember from 2.5 years ago. But I do remember that it was just a little more concise and a little bit more coherent in the kind of overall storyline that they had for the season. And you had Scott MacArthur, who's a really great actor and did a really good job in season 1, playing, Gideon's partner, I guess, in the stuntman whole thing from Hollywood. And he kind of blackmails them and that whole storyline. I just felt like that was a little more coherent and just a little less kind of big. And that's what we see in this season. This season just kind of feels a little bit bigger, a little bit more kind of, exploring some of the other more details in this world, whereas season 1 was, I would say, a little bit more focused, right? A little bit more concise in that. And so as a result, with this season being a little bit bigger, it feels a little bit more convoluted in that way in some of the plot points in this one, and maybe just including a little bit too much for one season. Whereas I think they really could have, again, I'll talk more about this in spoilers, but I think a couple plot points here in specific really could have maybe been kind of scrapped or at least seen in a bit of a different form, and I would have given kind of more room for one just big storyline to really further the whole rest of the show. And this, I'm really just talking about the main storyline. Of course, there were some really great subplots for the season, and I recognize, of course, you need those subplots to fill out these episodes and develop some of these characters and see where they are. Of course, Calvin's whole thing with the Muscle Men, that was kind of the big subplot of this one for him. And I really enjoyed a lot of those, but I'm just more talking about the main storyline of the Listens and Eli's past, right? Those are kind of the two that really, kind of go through the whole season in that way. So, I will say though, with this kind of expansion of this world and seeing a few more of these new faces, I really liked that though. I really liked seeing the Listens. And at the very beginning of the season, we see some of the more pastors, where Nathaniel Block, played by Jason Schwartzman, comes in and he's gonna expose them and all that stuff. So I really like that aspect of it. I like seeing that. I just think that maybe you go with just that one and not Eli's past or something like that. But anyways, I'll get more into that. But that's just my kind of thought of this one, just from an overall story perspective. And I know, of course, it is, at the end of the day, a comedy. All this stuff is more of just kind of nitpicking, I guess, because at the end of the day, we are watching this to laugh and all that. That's not, I don't miss that point, but to me, that's just something I noticed about this one. And so some great moments throughout this season, including most of all the finale, I thought was maybe the best episode of the season. Such a great way to tie up this season and all the things that they really built up to going into that episode. And yeah, just some really great moments in this one that are truly unmatched on any other TV show, just with the stuff that they're willing to do in this show, I'll get to that a little bit later, but the commitment from some of these actors in some of these scenes that I'll talk about, it's just amazing. It's just phenomenal, really, how committed everybody is to the show, especially Danny McBride at the top. And you really see that come through in some of these moments and some of these sequences, episodes, all that stuff that really go into this season. And it just is really great. So yeah, of course, it's just another season of classic Danny McBride, comedy, drama, horror, action even, all kind of put together. This really great mix that he's really mastered, I would say, in these last few shows that he's done on HBO. Especially Eastbound and Down, I think maybe less of the horror aspect, but then we did see that a little bit in Vice Principals. So I feel like everything that he's done before is really kind of building that kind of, experience, I guess, or that skill set. And I think he's really mastering it now at this point in the Righteous Gemstones. So yeah, overall, I think this season set the bar pretty damn high for any other comedy to top it this year for me. Like I said, I think season 1 was maybe a little bit better, but season 1 was also probably my favorite comedy of 2019 when it came out. And this one, I think at this point, may be up there as well. So we'll have to see, of course. We're very early in the year. But yeah, to me, really great season. And I think by the end of the year, it's going to be at the top for me. That's just how I feel. And of course, I do have to say, this show isn't for everybody, and I don't think this season will be for everybody. If you haven't watched Eastbound and Down or Vice Principals, or worse yet, if you have watched them and you're not a huge fan of them, I'm not sure that this is the show, for you. I would say this show is probably the most accessible though out of the three. It's a little bit more bigger and it's a little bit more kind of more of the general stuff. Eastbound and Down, very kind of baseball sports heavy, I would say. Vice Principal is a little bit more of the darker humor in that. And this one maybe the most accessible, but like I said, if you haven't seen those, it's hard to recommend. But if you have, of course, you already know. It's great, and I definitely recommend it in that way. Really, at least try it out, though, I would say, either way. But anyways, those are all my thoughts, then, of the non-spoiler section here. Now, I will give a warning for spoilers, so if you haven't seen the season, maybe, click off this one and come back once you have. And, yeah, we'll get into the spoiler discussion now. All right, so some great performances in this season. Again, right, some really great performances from this same cast last season, especially Edie Patterson, who was really a standout as well in Vice Principals, and someone I really liked in that show, but didn't quite get the kind of main spotlight, I would say, in that. She was really a really kind of main supporting character, a recurring character in that. I'm not sure if she was maybe in all episodes, but she wasn't kind of she wasn't a Snodgrass or Walton Goggins' character or Danny McBride's character. She wasn't one of those main players, but this show, she is, and I think she's one of the best of this cast, again, this season, and she was really a standout in season 1 as well. And some of the one thing I said off the top as well is just the commitment, and with her, I think that's just the pinnacle of that kind of commitment to this absurd comedy, and the stuff that she's willing to do as an actress really comes through, really does in her performance in the season. And I'm sure through a lot of improv and those types of things. And even one of the scenes that really comes to mind is BJ's baptism, and that scene with her and BJ's sister in the bathroom. I think she lick her face or really come close or something like that. And just in the vulgar things that she says all the time, really brings this character to life and is just really, really hilarious. So, really great job from Edie Patterson. Of course, that goes for everybody, even John Goodman, someone, who I'm not, of course, a really great comedian as well, but I'm not sure, some of the lines that they have him say in the show are really absurd or really vulgar, and so I think his commitment as well in that, and of course Danny McBride, really kind of the top of his game as well. So just really great commitment, I want to say, and from the new faces too, from all of them. Jason Schwartzman actually wasn't in much of the season, to be honest, right? I thought he would have a bigger role. He was only, I believe, in maybe 3 or 4 scenes total in the season, I think, right? A couple episodes here at the beginning, and then obviously the flashback and the finale. But I thought he was pretty good in that, in his kind of commitment to that. Of course, Eric Andre, really great. And Eric Roberts, somebody who I haven't seen really dive into comedy this far. He's more of a really good dramatic actor from what I've seen him in his TV roles recently. And he was really great in some of the comedy, working off of Danny McBride as well, and some of those scenes that they had together. So yeah, I really liked all the new faces. I thought the additions to the cast were great. Of course, we won't see Jason Schwartzman, Eric Andre again. We might see Eric Roberts in season 3. I kind of doubt it. I kind of think his storyline's just wrapped up and we won't see him again. But we might. So it'd be really great to have him back if he wanted to come back. And I really good kind of, I have really good, confidence or faith, I guess, that they'll make some really great casting decisions again next season, to bring in some of these recurring characters, that honestly, Eric Andre really made a lot of this season, really great, and was as one of the main parts of a lot of those great moments, especially in that finale, right? So, really great to kind of have those new faces, have some fresh, talent in there, and really kind of bring together this cast that is already great by themselves. So, one thing I do want to say about the cast, though, is Walton Goggins. He did an amazing job again, but I will say I would have liked to see more of him. Just overall in this season. I think that is because he was filming, I believe it's Unicorn, is that it? The CBS comedy that he was in, which has now been canceled. But I believe at the time they were filming this, he was also filming that. And so I think because of that, the conflict there with the scheduling just made it that he couldn't be in this season as much. But I think in season 1, he is in, I believe, 7 episodes. I think this season he's in 6 or 7 again, but he's just, I don't know. I felt like his presence wasn't as felt this time around in season 2. I felt like the plot for him in season 1 was just a little more fleshed out, and he was really kind of a main player. Whereas in this one, I felt like he was just kind of a background. And he doesn't even show up until episode 4 of this season. He wasn't in any of the first 3 episodes, whereas he definitely was in season 1. So anyways, I just would have liked to see more of him because he's one of my favorite characters of this. Of course, loved him in Vice Principals, loved him in Justified, one of my favorite actors, quite frankly, on TV right now. So that's just my point of view, kind of selfish. I would have liked to see him in this, but I'm sure he's also doing great work in Unicorn. And yeah, so that's been canceled now. So maybe in season 3, if he doesn't pick up something else, maybe he can be a little bit more involved in the story there. All right. So, of course, like I said off the top, this season delivers on the classic elements of these Danny McBride HBO shows. This perfect mix between comedy, drama, this little bit of action, a little bit of horror, I would say, this season. And especially in episode 2 when they go to, Nathaniel Block's cabin, that whole thing plays out. And especially in the finale when we see it happen. And all those kind of elements of that, I thought were really great. And yeah, just such a perfect mix where it's, really hilarious, this absurd kind of comedy. And then you also have this kind of dramedy. There's always a story, there's always kind of a deeper story or a mystery going on with anything that Danny McBride touches, especially with Vice Principals, right? Yeah, it's a hilarious show, but there's always kind of an underlying story there. And definitely something always that these characters are going towards, right? It's not just this kind of hangout comedy where they're making jokes and it's this, one thing that happens every episode or something like that. There's always kind of a serialized, kind of fleshed out story that's working behind the scenes, that's really furthering this. And especially in season 1, we have the whole blackmail story. This season we have kind of 2, which is, Eli's past, and then of course the listens and that whole thing with Zion's Landing. And just a really great way to develop those characters, again, while also remaining hilarious, just hilariously funny. And so I will say, I think some of the comedy, though, this season was a little bit, I would say a little bit lesser than season 1. Again, and I'll get to this in just a minute, I guess, but one of my main criticisms with that is just that it felt a little convoluted, and having both of these stories in the same season at once, really kind of, it kind of made for more time having to be spent on the drama and developing those storylines more so than some of this absurd comedy that we got with season 1. And so in that way, I would say just that, I guess, about season 2 is that, yes, the comedy was great, but maybe there was just less of it at some points in the season, especially towards the middle of the season as well. That would just be kind of just a little nitpick there if you want to compare this season to last season, right? So yeah, so I guess I'll get to my criticisms then, and that basically is just that the overall story was just a little too convoluted, right? Having both Eli's past with Junior and the whole, Memphis wrestling thing going on, and the kind of expansion of that mega church world with the listens, and Zion's Landing and that whole thing, and Jesse trying to show off, and all that. And then I guess you could say Calvin and the Muscle Men, but that was really kind of a primary subplot, if you will, in the same way that Judy taking in Baby Billy's wife, pregnant wife towards the end of the season was kind of a primary subplot for her. And so I wouldn't really include that, but just these main 2 that were really running through the season, I thought maybe you honestly just use one of them in this season. I think both of them made this, again, a little too convoluted, just a little bit too much. Whereas I think, again, with the whole Nathaniel Block storyline, that actually ends up very quick, which is great, right? The whole abruptness of that whole story, and you think it's going to be this huge thing, he's going to expose everybody, and then he's dead. He's dead in his cabin, which is hilarious, of course, right? And really works well for the comedy, but maybe you could have expanded on that a little bit. still had kind of, an absurd conclusion, but maybe stretch that out for a couple more episodes or kind of develop that story more with the listens, and then take kind of Eli's past and put that in next season, or maybe just scrap that and make it a smaller subplot. I just felt like the whole Junior storyline, we spent a little bit too much time on it for the lack of a payoff that we got for it, is what I would say. Because all along it was really just a red herring. Right, the whole kind of the whole thing of the hitmen, the cycle ninjas on Eli, was the listens all along the entire season, and Junior didn't really have much to do with that. So basically after episode 3 or 4, the whole Junior storyline, we spend a lot of time on it, including a lot of time in that interlude episode, the kind of flashback episode, but we don't have much of a payoff for that, because at the end of the day, he's not behind the hits on Eli, and I do get it because it is a really good development for Eli's character and kind of exploring that past, but I just felt like that maybe could have been done in a little bit less time, and maybe spend more then on the listens, or to be honest, maybe just scrap that idea, maybe stick with the premiere of showing the wrestling past and that whole thing, and then maybe just kind of slowly, get away from the whole Junior storyline as we go later in the season, which they didn't really do. The listens really only come back in the finale, really, right? We don't see much of them up until that point, after about episode 3 or 4. So it really is just kind of this red herring of Junior's whole thing, and that deception that Jesse falls for, of course, thinking that Junior is behind it. And so, yeah, that would just be, again, both of those storylines created some great comedy, some really great kind of little payoffs along the way, including Junior's storyline, but just overall, looking at this season as a whole, it just kind of sticks out that the whole Junior Memphis wrestling thing, maybe we spent a little too much time on it for what we got. So anyways, that would just be my main criticism with that, and kind of going into more detail on that as well. So that's just kind of my thoughts there. And of course, the interlude episode, like I said, that spent so much time on the Junior storyline, I thought was actually really great for fleshing that out. But then again, when we get to the finale and we realize, or at least maybe some of us realized a little bit before that, including myself, that he wasn't behind the hits on Eli, and it was the listens. The whole interlude episode and all the stuff that I really liked from that in developing some of this stuff for these characters just kind of fell by the wayside, because that stuff didn't really matter that much to the actual ending of the story and the conclusion. So anyways, now I just want to talk about a few of my favorite moments from this one. Just kind of end on a positive note. This is just kind of very little negatives about it, but some of my favorite moments: BJ's baptism. I thought that whole episode was really well done. The whole dynamic between Judy and his sister, and then he comes out in that outfit, the romper, the pink romper. Hilarious stuff. And Tim Boltz, I think, really took a step up this season. He was fantastic. Love him in a lot of shows that he's been in recently. I think he even had a small stint on Better Call Saul that I really liked, a couple episodes there. And he's just fantastic in this season. Really great in that episode. And then, of course, Jesse, Calvin, and Judy discovering Nathaniel Block dead at the cabin and slipping in the pool of blood and that whole thing. That was just hysterical. And that's just the physical comedy that they do so well in these Danny McBride shows. I remember the premiere of season 1 when Danny McBride, Jesse, runs the guy over in the parking lot. That was, to me, one of the funniest. And I remember that, even though it was 2.5 years ago. That was so funny then, and this scene was really, I guess, the equivalent of that this season to me. I thought it was so funny. I was just laughing out loud for, just hysterical for a couple minutes. And then the whole Tesla thing, trying to close the door, that whole sequence was just so well done, so great. Just well written and well acted as well. And then, of course, Jesse confronting Junior in Memphis with his gang of the guys from church. That was so funny. And some of the comments, about raping, raping his family and all this stuff, and kind of that dark humor coming out. And wow, that was just so funny. And just the whole aspect, of course, that the whole show really plays on is just this hypocrisy with the religion and the church. And then, of course, in that scene, that's maybe the best kind of showing of that. is, all these guys that are supposed to be in this church group helping each other and all this stuff, and they're just so violent that they go and confront this guy, and the stuff they say is just really funny. And one other thing I want to just quickly mention with this whole church gang that he has is Jody Hill as Levi played such a big role in this season. I think he only had maybe like 5 or 6 lines. But just these scenes where they, or just even shots, I guess, where they show Jody Hill and just his face and just that whole character that he plays is just so well done. Every time he was just shown on screen, I was just laughing because that character, and especially in this scene here, he's just so great. So great. Just that subtle performance. And right? That he's not really a big actor. And so seeing him in these scenes and just being like really awkward and those kind of subtle like looks and stuff, I don't know. I just found that really funny. And then of course the toilet baby sequence in the finale, so great. And just kind of, wrapping everything up with baby Billy and his wife there, bringing everything full circle. Of course, she was the toilet baby. She now had a toilet baby. Just a really great sequence there. And then the entire sequence of that finale after Jesse finds out about Lyle is just so funny. That moment when he comes to Calvin and Judy and says, I just killed a person or whatever like that. One of the funniest moments of the season to me. Really great stuff, and covers him up with like a few branches or whatever. Then he comes back to life and then they shoot BJ in the leg. And anyways, that whole scene was just so funny. That kind of absurd, physical comedy, that whole stuff there that went down, just perfectly executed. Really great stuff there in that finale. So those are just some of my favorite moments. I'd love to hear what your favorite moments are as well, and kind of trying to relive some of these moments. Without rewatching it, which I probably will inevitably do before season 3. So, just discussing the finale then to end things off really quickly here. Again, like I said, previously, I think this may be the best episode of the season. Now, I will say, I'm going to be honest, I was a little worried going into this finale because I thought, okay, they have like 36 to 40 minutes here to tie this story up, and there's a lot of stuff that's left, kind of a lot of questions, and I'm wondering what they're going to do with this. But I was really pleasantly surprised, I guess. Not surprised, because I had faith, but just really impressed. My expectations were definitely exceeded with what they did here in the finale. I just thought it was such a perfect ending and such a satisfying conclusion to everything that was set up throughout the season. Well, of course, Junior's being a red herring, that was still a satisfying conclusion in that we just found out that he wasn't responsible. Yes, would I have liked more of a kind of elaborate thing for him? Yeah, sure. But in the way that they did it, I think it was just a really well done way in just 40 minutes, a really quick kind of finale and a quick way to tie things up that really left no loose ends, right? And they really went to the very last second of that runtime to see Lyle Listen dead there in the Arctic, I guess, or I'm not sure where they are, Alaska. Just a really good, really great way of doing that and tying up everything and making sure there's no loose ends. And that's something I really like about the show so far, at least with season 1 and season 2, is it really tells complete stories and really doesn't leave a big cliffhanger or anything like that. And I'm wondering if that's also because Danny McBride and them are just not sure that HBO's going to, greenlight another season or not. I'm not sure why the reasoning is that, or that's maybe just a creative decision. But either way, I really respect that a lot, that there's really no loose ends, there's no cliffhangers or anything like that. It's really a nice, just complete story and some really great, satisfying conclusions to everything that they really set up here. And I think they do that in season 1. As well, but I don't think they do it quite as well in that finale episode, because season 1 was almost like a 2-part finale, to me at least, with episode 8 and 9, kind of forming that finale and tying up everything together, whereas this one I felt like was just one episode of doing all of that. So, really great episode, like I said, maybe the best of the season. And of course, I will say that I did predict that the Listens were responsible. I think it was pretty easy to predict that, actually, towards the end of the season, that Junior was just a red herring and that he wasn't really, a part of that. He wasn't responsible for the Cycle Ninjas or anything like that. But I think, once Jesse found out, I already said that was one of my favorite sequences of the season. Them dying out in Alaska in the cabin, was just really well done. So yeah, it was kind of, it was predictable, I guess, but just the way that they did it, I did not predict. I knew that probably the listeners were going to die somehow, but the way they did it just exceeded all my expectations, and it was just so great. And again, such classic Danny McBride, humor and kind of that horror aspect again with him dying out there, and then of course they attempt what was on the TV that they're watching the movie, and then he throws her out this thing, and she just gets gunned down right away. So not many other shows that would be willing to show that for comedic value, but Danny McBride is definitely willing to do that, and I love it. Really great stuff there, and a really great ending sequence to this great finale episode. So anyways, that'll just about do it then for all my thoughts on the second season of The Righteous Gemstones. Like I said off the top, this is going to set the bar pretty high for any other comedy that comes after it this year, in terms of my favorite comedy of the year. Really looking forward to what else is out there, and especially Barry that's coming in a couple months, also on HBO. But this one, it really set the bar high, and we'll have to see towards the end of the year whether this one ends up being the best or not. But anyways, also looking forward to season 3. It has been renewed, which is awesome. Really great stuff, and it got renewed very early, so HBO is very confident in Danny McBride and in the show, and that's really great to see as well. Right, they have faith in the show, and this kind of niche audience that will be there anytime, anywhere, for a Danny McBride HBO show, has just been so supportive and so great backing all of these shows, and HBO really doesn't have a decision. They really do, have to renew this and keep it going, for the fans, and it's awesome to see. So, really look forward to season 3 when that does come out. But anyways, love to hear your guys' thoughts on this one, of course, like I said off the top. What do you think of the season, all that stuff? What are you looking forward to in season 3? All that stuff. Love to discuss with you guys, as always. But thank you guys so much then for watching this review, and we'll see you then in my next video.
Rendezvous in the night, a willing woman to hold you tight.